Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. Today we are going to be focusing on a very specific, more niche subject, and that is the S torso. Torsos in general, are a big conversation in trying to understand which torso type are we after, what are we after? Again, the torso is such a huge amount of the body of your, and of your drawing. So we want to be able to make the right call, right, on which one we're after. Because picking the wrong one could, basically lead to a drawing that doesn't work. Now, I want to preface this with one of the habits I see occur in the student drawings is that they go for the, let's get to our heads here. They go for the template too earnestly. It's like, it's an S torso, let me draw a letter S on the piece of paper. It's not like that. The same with the letter C. It's not like you draw a letter C and voila, you have the torso. My suggestion would be draw the torso, draw the torso and then recognize by drawing the torso that one of these templates starts to emerge. And I'd say that's a good place to begin. And then after you go through that process, you'll probably be able to just look at a photograph and identify, oh, that's an S, that's a reverse S, that's a C or a CS or what have you. It's fine if you go in there first with it. I just worry about you drawing iconography on the piece of paper instead of the human body, right? And I've seen that happen. When I bring these up, I see that happening. I've done that in classrooms. I've seen that occur in mentorship. It occurs, right? That you go too strongly into that, you lean too far into the template itself. So I want to put that out there before we get started today. Okay, with all that, let's say hello to the gang. How you doing, Swenley?
Good. Ready to go. Ready for some S-curve torsos.
Yeah, that's right. It's exciting stuff to work on today. A lot of drama. And how are you doing, Mrityunjay?
Yeah, I'm doing good. The topic is interesting. So we're connecting the torso with the alphabets, right? So it's going to be amazing, see how that works with the function of the torso. Yeah.
Yeah. So each one of us will, Swenley, Mrityunjay, and I will each cover a particular facet of today's education, as we mostly do. Let's head over to Photoshop. And voila. And I just want to remind all of you, again, if you like what we're teaching here, we all live at drawingforce.com. And, if it was a house, we'd each have a room in this house that we live in. If you like what we're doing here, we all mentor there. There's hundreds of videos on drawingforce.com that actually talk about these discussions. And I kind of want to just briefly mention, this comes from my education as a student and also from my years at Disney Animation. And there's a lot of an animator's approach that's going on in these videos, trying to bring things to life, right? It's called life drawing for a reason, right? So we want to bring things to life, not dead figure drawing, right? So come visit us there. And also, hit the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to get the notifications so you don't have to worry about scheduling all this stuff yourself, hit the bell, right? So with that, let's get some power over to Swenley and Mrityunjay so they can take the reins. So it's all yours, Swenley.
Right. Okay, guys. So like Mike said, we're going to be discussing the S-torso templates. And I'm going to start with the simple side view. And let's start with what you don't want to do when dealing with a torso from the sides is you want to avoid symmetry. Now, ironically, symmetry does occur in the front view, which we will discuss later on. But from the sides, you don't want to be just stacking up egg shapes. And sometimes I see this. This is very stiff for a torso in a side view. And not only that, in terms of function, then it's unclear on which side of the form the forces are. You know, like is that the back or the front? Like what's going on? So in terms of the function and what's going on, this is unclear. So what you want to do is basically this. So if you look at the torso from the side view, we have a rhythm that is being created between the back and the stomach and the pelvis. So here we see the directional forces. You can see the applied forces like pushing in opposite directions. And the important thing to understand about the S curve is the fact that you have to cross over. Now we have two directional forces, so we have to cross over from the back into the stomach in order for this to work. And if you have a C torso, in contrast, that doesn't happen now because you basically have squash and stretch. So there is no crossing over. And I've often seen beginning for students like confuse these two things. You know, like they would go in and they would draw a C curve, and then they would also draw an S in it. You know, and it's like, which one is it? Because there isn't even any twist. So what's going on? So with a C curve, no crossing over from one side to the other. But with the S curve, you have to do that because you have this directional force coming from the back, crossing over and applying itself to the stomach and to the pelvis. So very important to keep in mind. And this rhythm is very natural because it's created by the spine. And Mrityunjay is going to talk about the anatomy later on. Well, this is the natural rhythm from the side view. And it's also important to be aware that it's totally possible for the torso to bend a little bit and still be an S curve. Now, sometimes this happens. So when there is a bend, it's not necessarily automatically a C. And Mike is going to talk about how to identify what's going on. So just be aware of that. You know, it's possible for that to happen. And then, of course, we have the torso from a front view. So let's go over here. So from a front view, it's symmetrical, you know, like it is what it is. The rhythm, as we saw, occurs in a side view. And from a front view, it's symmetrical. So there isn't really any rhythm when the torso is in a neutral position, like you see here. However, a rhythm can occur once we get this lateral movement. Now, so we go from here to here. So let's say the figure or the model applies force to, let's say, the hips and pushing it out that way, and then to the rib cage on the other side, pushing it out this way. Then you would have this S curve. Now, so a pose in which that would occur is, let's say, the model is doing something like this, and then the weight would be primarily on this leg, and this leg might be stretched out like this. Now, then is when you have that S curve rhythm, and again we have the crossing over from one side of the torso, now over the stomach into the hip. So this connection, very important. That's really what creates the idea of the letter S, you know, this crossing over. And if you have questions, of course, feel free to interact and ask in the chat. So neutral position, you know, applied force on the on one side of the rib cage at the upper parts, the other side of the pelvis on the opposite ends, and we get this lateral movement. And here we can see a more exaggerated version of it. Now, so we go from neutral, and we have this. So template-wise, in terms of like the regular S curve, these are the two instances in which it would occur. So hopefully that clears it up. I know that a lot of artists say that they have trouble understanding the torso templates, but this is a good place to start, and it really comes down to understanding how things work. Like I had one artist ironically say today, because I posted a picture of a model and asked which template it is. And I drew the two options. I drew the regular S and the reverse S curve. And this person said, well, I don't know that much about this force stuff, but I can see that the template that you drew on the top looks exactly like the model. And I was like, yeah, that's it. You need to be able to see which of these templates match what the torso is doing, in the figure. So this person would be a great force artist if they choose to go down that path. So that's it for me in regards to the templates. Anything to add, Mike, or any questions?
No, not for me. I think we're good on the forum. So we have actually, as Shashank Mishra said, how can we draw a same face from different angles? I don't know if you mean same face as a head or it means the forces. Maybe you could try doing a sketch or two of, like, what does this look like in perspective if you foreshortened this drawing, right? How would you use force to do that, or the template, right?
So draw like this torso from a different angle?
Yeah, like looking down from the shoulders down towards the pelvis from above.
Yeah, sure. It's the addition of perspective, indeed, like Mike mentioned. So let's say we take this into perspective, and let's see, actually, now since we are dealing with perspective, I like to use like guidelines. Now, something as simple as even a plane helps me to visualize the shots. Now, it could be a plane, it could be a box. Now, so just for clarity's sake, let's say that this is the kind of shot that I want. Now, so this helps me to visualize the 3D space. And then I start with the S curve in mind. So we have this side, and then we cross over. Now, so now I'm thinking about the volume. Now, so I'm using these ellipses here. Think about the volume. So we go from this side, and it's pushing into the other side. Now, and shape-wise, this would be straighter, and have like this little straight moment here at the obliques, and this a bit rounds. Now, because you have the gluteus muscle and such there at the side of the pelvis. Now, and this would be the center line, and this might be like the top of the pelvis. Now we can get the V shape in there, socket for the thighs. Now, and this would be like the opening for the neck. So it's really understanding perspective, and like you saw me starting here, it starts with the ability to draw the freehand box. That's a very important exercise that we teach during mentorship, because you could essentially fit anything into a box. So I started by visualizing that box to help me like establish the shot, the camera angle in my mind. And then I just visualize the torso in that box. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that's good. Great. I think what I wanted people to see there is, there is this combination of force and form, and you're having to think spatially about something like two lines is tricky, right? That you're trying to merge those two ideas, and that force is spatial. It's not just two-dimensional. We start people in a more two-dimensional area, kind of on the surface of the page, versus thinking you're going in or out of the page.
Yeah, you're gonna learn the perspective, folks. There's no way around
perspective. Exactly, no way around it.
All right, so it's all yours, Mike.
Okay, folks. Let's see. I want to share my Photoshop with you guys. Here we go. Okay, can you see my Photoshop?
Yes.
All right. So I thought I would start with my post from this week. You know, Swanley, Matunjay, and I have been posting the lead up to today, and trying to understand, you know, which torso template is it, right? So for those of you that were joining in on that, I thought I'd give you the answers today, because I didn't when in Instagram. Hold on, just trying to get my monstrous brush here under control. So this is actually a drawing for mentorship, ironically, that I was drawing for a student, and we were talking about this pose. And this is like the quintessential of one of those particular S's. This happens to be an S, but it's a reverse S, okay? Now, the reason it's a reverse S versus a regular S is, as Swanley showed us in like the side view, you know, if this is the head, right? So here's somebody's head. Force moves from like the front of the neck. Why is that? Well, because you know, you have your spine over here that's really supporting the head, and we're using like the muscle here in the front because that's the part that's curving out. So, and then the curve out over here is in the thoracic region, right? So that pushes up over here. And then the spine curves in. Anytime it curves in, we want convex, right? So that curve ends up being here, as Swanley showed us, right? So that gives us this movement, right? And that's that regular S. So regular S goes from back to stomach, but this guy's doing the opposite, right? This guy's actually moving from his chest, right? Like this towards the back of his pelvis, right? He just happens to be rotated, you see? He's like this. And then he's in perspective, right? He's like this, kind of like what Swanley just did, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute, there's the template, but it's in space, right? There's the perspective of it. But the template is still a reverse S, an RS. It's going from here to here. So not a normal S would have been the answer to this, right? It's a reverse S, it's not a normal S, right? Okay, the next one I posted was this one. It's a 2-minute drawing, right? And this one is a regular S. Again, those of you that guessed that, congratulations. Here I have some applause for you. Very good job, very good. All right, this goes from here to here, all right? So there you go. So that's a back to front. That's exactly what we just saw, right? So that's a regular S, right? It looks like that. Then we have this one, right? It's a 3 minute. So anytime you see a number again by my drawings, it tells you how long it took me to draw it. It's a 3-minute drawing that I'm trying to move. There we go. And we don't want you there. And we want this, and we want the layer. So what is this, right? It's interesting. It almost looks like it could have been close to a C, right? By doing like this, right? But the C would have meant a perfect nice swing up into this hip, right? And you'll see that the guy, the model, his shoulders are very strongly like this. His pelvis is like this. It does have some of that C in it, but you can see I really started swinging this guy like this way too, which means I'm implying that his stomach, you know, that I need to get to his stomach. Now, I think this one's, you know, this is up for debate on this a little bit, because I wouldn't say it's a C by itself, but it could be a CS. You know, it could be that he's sweeping, like we have the S in here, and maybe we do have this because of that swing up that's going on here. It's hard to tell if it's a swing up or really it's more about the fact that I put this line in here for the perspective, right? Because you can see the box of like his pelvis would be something like this, you see? So a little tough to say, and I'm not looking at that model anymore, but there's some S-ing going on here from here to here, but I think there's also a very strong curve going on. You'll notice here, and this is something we're going to look at in photographs, this kind of pushes the S idea, and that the lumbar region, which is your lower back, this region right here. So in my drawing, it's right there, right? This is lumbar. You'll notice the lumbar region is very straight, right? I purposely put a straight line in there. I kind of shoved that straight line in the lower back to make sure it's supporting the weight of the upper body and the rib cage. So that means I was implying an S, because that usually will happen with the S, you know? You'll see there's a definite difference between the curvature of the spine, that's straight, and then the rear end like that. So when that happens, we kind of bypass the lumbar and swing ourselves over to the front, right? And like I said, we'll look at that more in some photos. This one, right? Let's see, what is this one? Pretty much showed you just with the blue arrows, right? It's like this one is an S torso, right? Definitely a big push up that's going into like the shoulder up there. You have all this like thrusting upward, but the body itself, you know, his rib cage to pelvis is like this, right? He's doing this kind of thing. So sweeping over. There's no massive like change in the torso, like so. So he's going from his back, right, again, thoracic region to the stomach, and then I would grab the edge of that stomach down to the crotch. So here's, let's say, the V for the pelvic region, and then his, you know, here's the pelvis, and his leg comes out of there. So this is the V of the lower abs, right? You know, his rear end is here, so you kind of have this like side view of the box over there. And I'm sweeping from here and pushing on that hip and the edge of the stomach and sweeping down to the crotch, basically. Right. Any questions? Kevin, practice drawing from your shoulder. I think this is a CS. Yeah, okay. Schedule time for gaming and for drawing. I see you're talking to Constantine. All right, so, and that's it, right? That gets us to the culmination of all of that. So I brought in some photographs today, which I just realized I don't think I've edited. Hold on a second. I brought in some photographs today that I want to look at with you guys. And they discuss, you know, what they do is have us take a look at challenges I've found that students have on average across these particular photos. There's like certain pictures that end up bringing up a problem, right? It's like, I'm just not sure, right? So here's the like, I'm just not sure images, right? So let's see, I'm almost done. Any questions in the chat while I finish up here? No? Miss Wenley, number two.
Kevin asked, is his right leg front of thigh, back of calf?
Oh, which one is, oh, this leg, I guess. This would have been front to front. Hold on, let me get Photoshop back up. Photoshop. Okay. This leg here, screen right would have been front to front. This would be an out and out. I would go outside, inside, outside on this guy. Boom, boom, boom. It's kind of funny from that view. It's like a 3/4, but I want to come, you could see the arching that's coming down that leg. I want to smash down into that knee from there. Okay, so let's take a look at the photos, right? So here's our first picture. So what's going on here, right? Pretty challenging photograph and trying to figure out the torso and the rib cage. But what can I see? Well, I can see that he's got a strong curve for his back, right? Whoops, I want that. So he's like this, right? We got this strong curve. And I could see, if I look around the edge there, you can see his chest is there and it's kind of bent out, but almost straight, kind of like that, right? As I come down his back, so this is his spine, right? This is the middle line. Here's the other shoulder, for instance, right? That's the other half of his body. So you got one half and the other half, right? Like so. So I come down here and I get to here and I have to decide. A C torso means I continue, right? Right here is the question mark, folks, right? Right there. That's the question mark. And it looks like a 2 with a dot. What do I do? If I go down, I continue down the back, it turns it into a C torso. I end up here, right? Or I cut across, right? So I get over here and I decide, you know what? I'm going to go down under the lats here and I'm going to cross over and get to what I can't see, which is his arm, right? And say that I think it's going like this, and then that's going to bring me back around and underneath that little moment. Now, remember what I just mentioned with the other drawing. Here's the lumbar, and you'll notice you could see that little straight moment, right? So go lumbar, right? This, in this one, this would help me understand this is an S torso. So that's how minute, right? Sometimes the clues are, right? The clues are to you understanding what kind of torso type it is. So that, think of that as like a stop sign, right? That's a little barrier. As soon as I have that little straight moment, it means, whoop, I need to cut over. right? And it's cut over here. You can go into the stomach, come through and around like so, right? And then this is an outside thigh, it's inside knee and so on down there. So this is an S torso. The other thing to keep in mind here is Michael's not, he's not bending over, you know, from his back to his front. He's kind of bending towards us. He's leaning. I wouldn't even say he's bending that much. He's leaning towards us. So really, he's just in a standing pose, right? He's basically in the front view. He would have been like this, right? This is his pelvis and this is his rib cage. And he just decided to go like this, right? So he's leaning, right? He's leaning over, but we're seeing him from the side, right? So in that side view of leaning over, he's just, you know, upper back, right? Back thoracic area of the spine, moving over to the stomach, right? And that's it. So that's how to handle that photograph. Here's another one, right? So it's like, do I go for the C or do I go for the S, right? The answer here is, again, I'm going to go for the lumbar region. I'm going to look over here. I can obviously see this, right? Last week we talked about direction. It's like he's going that way. He's kind of going over towards like 9, 10 o'clock with his upper body, right? So I want to get that direction in my drawing. I want the figure to move that way, right? So I keep feeling this out. And I get up here with his torso, right? So we're like this. And I have to decide, you know, do I cross over and make this an S like so, or do I continue down? So again, right here at the bottom of the ribs, right? Bottom of ribs, right? Is where we could stick a sign here, right? Right here with an arrow that goes, hey, are you going to go this way to do the S, or are you going to go this way, right, to do a C? Which way are you going to go, right? So I start looking around, right? I'm standing there figuring out where do I go in this crossroad, and I look at his lower back, right? I start looking down here and I'm like, his lower back here is pulled into the effort of what's going on. You'll see it's curved like this, right? Look at the photo. See right there? Like that is pulled into the curvature of the rest of the back. So guess what? That's a C torso. That is not an S, right? This is like this. And he's not turning, rotating. He's not giving me enough torque in any way for me to even substantiate an S in this pose at all, right? So he's like this. All right, so we're here. That means, you know, I've got his chest, his rib cage, not even just his pectoralis, it's his whole rib cage that's down here. And then I'm going to come up like this, and I can see his pelvis is about right there. All right, this is going like this. And then he's got this creases in there. It's like, oh yeah, of course. Look, there's the other sign of the C, right? It's all stretched on one side, right? So going back to some animation terms, right? We've got stretch. And here we have squash. Squash and stretch, right? Thank you, 9 old men. So there we go, right? So this would be a C torso, right? Very common, I'll see students do this and think, I went this way. And I'm like, whoa, 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 you missed the whole lower back, right? And it's really important. You can't cut that out. That is a support system for getting through the back all the way up to that shoulder, right? Kevin, couldn't you also look at the planes of the shoulders and pelvis to determine if it's a C? Yeah, you could. You're getting a little more complex. But yeah, I mean, I can think about what the bottom is versus the side and so on, you know, like what's going on with these areas. Sure, you know, that might help also. You could see there's a little bit of bending this way too, right? So this to this is happening in here, right? That'll help. That's another sign. I think one of the things I want you guys to really be aware of today is this lumbar region. I use it very often, as small as it is. I use it as a differentiator for me to decide what's going on. It's one of the tools, right? I have a couple more I want to still share with you. Here's another pose, right? Now, I have to also say a common thing that shows up in mentorship is picking good reference. If a beginner brought this in, you're in like the first few weeks of mentorship, I'd be like, this is not a good pose for you to draw from, right? First of all, there's a lot of depth, right? There's a lot of foreshortening, so you shouldn't be here. Number two, I usually recommend when you're starting off, draw poses where the model is on their feet, right? This has got a 3-point system, his hand and his 2 feet touching the ground. So that's not great either, right? There's a lot of complication going on here. The balance and the way it works, like dealing with the gravity guide here, right, starts to change. So I wouldn't even do this, right? But here we are. I brought it up because I want you to see that his torso looks like a straight line. You see? It's like dead on straight line. So what do I do with that? Most of the time, when the torso is a straight line, it's an S torso, right? Because that's the body and it's like standing stage, right? So I'm going to try that out, right? It's like I'm going to say here's like the angle of his shoulders. That's me cutting across the chest. I'm kind of working my way up into here. I want to get into here, right? So I'm up there. I'm going to go like this. Here's the rib cage. And I'm going to let myself now here's the interesting thing. I could do this 2 ways. I could say I'm going to go from here and I'm going to go from here, right? Like so. So there you go. There's my S, right? I'm basically here and I'm here. A more sophisticated way, and which is why this isn't a beginner pose, would be that I go from here, I come up and over, and notice that's in a way starting to create the volume, right? The roundness of this pose, right? Because I'm going from here and I'm coming up, here's the rib cage. I'm coming up, here's his belly button, right? I'm coming up and over and around, right? And then his leg would be here and the other leg would be like here, right? And you can see I'm going through the bottom to get myself all the way up here. And then this knee is sitting like right there, right? So this is an outside, inside, outside leg, believe it or not. It's like that, comes back down, right? But that's the really sophisticated way. I come down, I loop. Notice this really wicked loop, right? Of going up and over and around to feel that S wrap around the tube of the upper body, right? So point to this one. Very often when the body is very straight, it's probably an S. I can't say 100%, but it's going to lean that direction because that's what the body does in its kind of straight state, is it's an S. You want to go to the C. C is usually bend, right? It's about a bending body, okay? All right, let's see what we got next. So, okay, what's going on here, right? So in this one, by the way, I would have you guys answering this, but there's always like a little lag between the actual recording and what you guys are seeing. And we'd probably all be sitting here quietly, like waiting. But here, this one, it's like, what do I think it is? Is it an S or a C, right? Well, it's a side view, right? It is a side view. But I see his body feels like it's on a general arc like this. If I just drew a line, I would say I see this. Right? I see this. This could be in the middle of the body. Let's say his chest is there. It's like his body's going like that. And what does that mean? Well, from a word descriptor point of view, we just talked about bending. He's bending. He's bending his torso, right? Between his rib cage, his pelvis, he's bending, right? So that's pushing. That means this is pushing out, right? His rib cage is pushing out, right? You can see it very clearly that he's thrusting his chest forward, right? And you really need that much like conviction to start moving this away from the typical S, right? Remember the typical S is, as Swenley and I both showed you, the typical S wants to go from the upper back down to the stomach, right? But here, the model, Michael, the model, he's like this, right? So he's like this. Here's his rear end. Right, so he's like this. I can't see this very well. It looks like it's straightish in there, right? And that's okay. That's okay, right? Because I'm not coming from here and going, whoop, stop sign, redirect over there. I'm not there really at all. It's really about this whole front being stretched out. Sure, I want to come over the top. I want to get the rib cage in there. And I kind of do stop there. And I respect that straight moment, right? And I go like this and get to the pelvis, right? So there it is. Now, what helps me here, first of all, I could see the bend. He's got a giant arch. Just from a pose standpoint, keep in mind that if the model's pushing their chest out and straightening out their upper back, then it's probably going to be a C torso, or it's got to be a reverse S because we're going from the chest to maybe the rear end towards the back, right? So this is just a C, right? And what I look at is I look at this, right? I start to investigate this shape, right? And that shape looks like this. You see? So here's his rib cage. It's like, what's the shape of his rib cage, right? Shape of his rib cage is that it's pretty straight in the back and curved in the front. Now we're always going to have a little curve right here, by the way. It's almost inescapable, right? Because even in the C torso, I want to hit that little moment at the back up here, and that helps me connect into his neck, right? So his neck is sitting like right here, like this, you see? So this is almost inescapable. Even in a C torso, you're going to have this little moment. But look at his rib cage. I mean, he's flattened out the back. He's pushed all of it out to the front, okay? Let's see, almost done here. Here's another one, another pose by Marie, right? So we've got like a shoulder, we've got pelvis. So could be C-ish, right? Because there's a little bit of an angle change going on. But man, it's hard to deny the fact that there's all this energy going up in the shoulder, and look at the angle of that rib cage, right? Sweeping over like this, right? Like just so strongly moving into the pelvis, right? So all of a sudden we have like this to this going on too. Now, as I said earlier, I don't just go into the hip. I usually grab like the edge of the abdomen, right? So you can see that on her, like right here. I'll put a line in there, right? It's like right there. So that line is what I'll grab, right? So I'll hit like the hip over here. I want to be aware that pushing out like that. I want to hit the edge of the stomach. It helps me set up construction right away because I can just look at the angle here. I could see the other point of the pelvis there, this iliac crest that's kind of like sweeping around like that, right? Tunjay will get more into all that stuff in a minute. And this sweeps down like this, right? So here, there's a lot of pushing like this. Now, what would have made this a C is going back to what I just talked about. If she had pushed her rib cage forward like so and straightened out her back like so, that would take me all the way down the front, right? It would change the pose. It would look like this, right? So that's one way she could have gone. That would turn this into a C. She could have pushed this more and come down this side like this, and that could give me a C, right? But she's not doing that. She's more laterally moving like side to side. There's some lift going on here, which usually I want to push into a C, but this is so angled. There's such a strong angle going on in here. That's not about bend. It's really about like a lateral slide, meaning the rib cage is going to the screen left and the pelvis is going screen right, you see. So I would say this is an S torso. And her rib cage, notice, is kind of flat right here, right? See that? Like her arm is starting to hide a little bit. You can see there's really nothing going on here in the rib cage, right? There's no outward curvature of it. It's kind of like this. So from a shape standpoint, that even further indicates that that shape helps validate my idea of pushing into the C torso. I'm into the S torso like this, you see? Okay. All right, are we doing okay on questions? Watching this while washing dishes. CS. I also noticed my weakness in order that I get upset when I'm not doing gesture one's perfect. Yeah, when that cracked the backbones. Yes, a lot of bones breaking, I would agree. All right, last but not least, very tricky one, I have to say, right? Like, what do we do here? What makes this challenging is her arm is blocking the front of her chest, right? So it's like, what do I want to do here, right? And I have to say, when I look at this photograph, let's analyze this for a moment, right? I look at this photograph, it's like, what are the things I understand? This is very flat, very, very flat, right? Which wants to insinuate to me that maybe she's pushing out into her chest and I just can't see it, right? Is it maybe pushing over here, like so? If that's the case, you can see right away that would lead me into a C torso. I would just do this, right? I'd get down here, her lumbar region is right here. So it's like this little straight moment between the rib cage and pelvis, right? Like that. So that's one option, right? I'd say that's one option. We have this really straight drop of the back and it's a C torso. She's got this sweep of bend going on. Man, I just want to try the S, right? But remember I said earlier, you know, up here, we almost always have some little bit of curve. So it's like, is it enough for me to say I should come down like this, you know, and sweep into the bottom of her like rib cage and underneath here and say it's like that, right? And then come around and say, you know what, I think her chest is straight. I don't think it's pushing out, right? Like this. And then it sweeps like this, right? And then that would give me this kind of S torso. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear from Swanley and Matunjay. What is your call on this one?
I've drawn it as an S curve. Like it seems like the front of the chest is straight. You know, if I look at the fore shape of the upper torso, it looks like it's an S curve, and that flows nicely into the shoulder and the head and neck.
Mm-hmm.
So I've drawn
So
it as an S.
So you've done this.
Yes.
Right. Okay. How about you, Matunjay? Any
It's the
opinions?
same because, you know, if using a C torso, I don't think it hooks up really nicely into the shoulder there, you know, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
a kangaroo jump, you know, like right into
You
the
mean over
shoulder.
here?
Yeah, it's like a waterfall, you know, like
Mhm.
into the deltoid and down to the down to the arm, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the S is like hooking up nicely with it. Wow. And I don't think like because like Marie is like very lean and I don't think she's pushing her chest that much, you know, into this pose.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I would have gone for an S in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of piggyback what both of you guys said. I think that although appearance-wise, it looks like her back is straight, what doesn't make sense about that is the fact that she's kind of rolling the shoulder forward. You can't really push your chest out and roll your shoulders forward, right? It's almost a sense of like trying to arch your back. I think we just have this really weird visual here of what feels like a kind of flat back, but the flat back is because she is rolling her shoulders forward, but it's her back just ended up not being very rounded. You know, I would have suspected more of something like that with her shoulder going to the front, you see. And oddly, we didn't get that. And I think to your point, maybe it's because she's just so lean and thin. She has a straight, strongish back. But I think the shoulder really helps, you know, pull that. And then like Swanley was saying, I think that brings you down and around over here, you know, so it's interesting, you know, and these are the kind of problems we want, right? So just to be clear with all of you, in mentorship, I don't say with each drawing, I just look at it and go, boom, it's that, you know. Sometimes it's very hard to differentiate, and I'm more than happy to draw for the student and do what we just did here and kind of go through it. And then we have a conversation about it and see if there's anything, is there any clue here, right? We got to put on a detective hat and see if there's any clue that will help us finally decide, right? So here you got to hear from three mentors, right? That it sounds like we're siding with the S. I think, like I said, for me, the final on that is that shoulder. I don't think she would wrap her shoulder, you know, kind of forward and still push her chest out. Like that's such a weird, awkward thing to try to pull off, you know. All right, let's see. Any questions before I hand off? Two opposing directional lemon slices. Yes, that's true. Constantinus likes talking about lemons, but there was always a waste. There's always a waste in a CS. A CS just,
a twist.
Oh yeah, a twist in a CS. Is that true? I think that is true. I'm trying to think if I can come up with a CS that doesn't have a twist in it. The C is the bend. So if there's an S in a C, within a C template, then it's usually there because it had a rotation, because otherwise the C and S conflict, right? They're kind of like two parent torso types. So if you're going to have a C, the S becomes secondary to that C, and that is the twisting that's happening. But the real main brand of that torso type is the C. So yes, I would say that's right. Okay, so all yours, Mrityunjay, whenever you're ready.
Yep. So let's see. Shared content. Okay, I gotta give my power to my iPad as well.
Let's finish off this drawing.
Yeah, you gotta give the power to my iPad. Can you do that?
Oh, you mean the power? You mean that you want to be able to share? Because you came in with it secondarily. That's why I forgot. Let's see. Chat.
This other half
Okay.
needs some power.
Exactly. He's so power greedy, you know? Always asking for power. Okay, there you go.
Okay. So let's see. So you guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let's go, guys. So okay, so slightly touch with the templates, like how the S works, like how does it look like and what are the specifics of it. Mike touched upon like with some demos and Mike answer a lot of questions. So what is the piece that's gonna wrap it up? Okay. And we're gonna be talking about like the icing on the top and the cherry on the top, or whatever you want to call it. We are going to go for the anatomy, right, of and how the anatomy actually supports this S idea. Okay. And then after this stream, hopefully you can take all these three pieces and like put it together to whenever there's like an S torso to challenge you with, hopefully you can deal with it, right? So there we go. No, the first thing I have here is these two boxes, right? So what I'm doing with it, well, the first one, and some of you might have just guessed it, this is the representation of the rib cage and the pelvis, right? So I have these like two boxes right here, and what's going to connect it? Okay, so I'm going to take a layer here really quickly. What's going to connect it, right? So basically we call it the core. Okay, so yeah, I can easily go with say a different color here, and I can say, okay, this thing, right, this whole thing right here, and there's also this like a V shape, right? So you see like the Superman underpants right there. Okay, and then this rib cage right here. So this section that I'm highlighting right now, this is the core section. Okay, and it is backed up. So I'm gonna make a profile view here really quickly. Right, so this is the spine, by the way. Right, you see like the anatomy is always working in this opposite nature, right? So we have the curve of the neck, we have the curve of the rib cage. You see like how that is like really opposite there. Okay, and with the S torso we just have this. Okay, like simple as that. But here I'm basically talking about the rib cage, so rib cage being something like this, right? It is backward tilted, and then the pelvis is always like forward tilted. Okay, so something like that. And then you see like in the middle section, we don't have like this solid bone, but we have the muscles. Okay, the muscles are covering this like core section, which is like your shield to your organs. Okay, so all your organs, like most of your organs, like live in this like centerpiece there, like your stomach and your like your liver and your kidneys or whatever, right? So this core section is flexible. Okay, there's also a piece that yeah, I can tell you, there's always like this contrast, right? So there's also this contrast of like hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, soft as well. So if I quickly just like create this here as well. So here's like a simple like human figure. So head is usually considered the hard piece, right? Because it's like the skull, right? Bone, that there's not a lot of like fleshiness in there. Okay. Then we come to like this conclusion about the neck being this being the soft, right? Because we can bend it, can stretch and squash it, we can twist and turn it, right? So that being the soft one. Okay, and then body goes into this order of like hard soft contrast. Okay, So again, the rib cage considered as hard, right? The core considered as soft, the pelvis considered as hard, right? So it just goes into that sequence of like hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, soft. Okay. So you see like the core here that is considered soft piece, because this is where everything happens, right? In this core section, like all the like the templates do exist because of this. Okay. All the S that we've been learning, the C torso, the CS torso, the RS torso, like whatever you call it, all the twisting, the bending, the squashing, the turning, like everything what you can imagine with the torso, like doing any dynamics, any motion, right? That is just because of this core section. Okay. And then because these two bones, right? These are like hard bones, they don't bend. Okay. So the core is actually helping me like doing all of this. Okay. So usually what do you do, right? You take like a simple box for the rib cage, and you take a simple box for the pelvis, and then you connect them with this flexible piece, the core section. Okay. Now we're gonna go over like a little bit of anatomy onto this like core section. And one of those muscles that really defines this core section, that would be oblique muscles, right? So I have a little illustration here, as you can see. Let me take a layer here on the top, right? So you see, like sometimes I use this as well, right? This kind of like egg shape for the rib cage, and that bowl kind of shape for the pelvis. And we also use boxes, okay? So it depends, both have their pros and cons, but they have their very specific uses, right? But anyway, we're gonna be talking about this anatomy piece here. And you see like all these muscles, these like really red muscles that you can see here. These are oblique muscles, okay? And those oblique muscles, like these are the one that covers the torso, like this core section, I would say, from the top, okay? And you can see like how unique their flow is, right? How unique these fibers kind of flow. It flows diagonally, right? And that is why it's called obliques, right? I mean, there's a reason why they're called obliques. So yeah, external obliques, to be specific, they are called external obliques. And there are like four muscles, like four layers of muscles, okay? So, and one of them is like the abdomen, right, muscles that you can see in the middle right here. Okay, we have the oblique muscles. We also have the internal oblique muscles, right? But these are like all like hidden muscles. So internal oblique is hidden. There's one more, and then there's external oblique. So yeah, these are like the four layers of muscle. I forget about that one, what's that called? But there's internal oblique, there's rectus abdominis, which is this one, right? And then there's the external oblique, right? So they're like four layers. I mean, yeah, what you can imagine, right? This middle section, which is an empty section, so it won't be just left out by cover just one muscle, right? It needs like more protection there. Okay. So anyway, the external oblique is what usually we see, because that's the outermost layer there, right? And it's connecting from the so for example, like here we have like all the ribs, okay? So we have like all the ribs right here, like that. There's another muscle called serratus muscle, which you can see right here as well, right? Which is like these pike-shaped muscles, that is like covering covering like some part of the rib cage. And the unique thing about the serratus muscle and the oblique muscle is that they're weaved together, so this forms like a very interesting pattern. I'm going to show you some photographs, that be very clear to you, like how these muscles actually look like onto the body, right? But that's how the oblique muscles go, right? The external oblique muscles goes like they are they are, I mean, you can see right here, okay, like, and this is like such attached onto the pelvis, okay? So they're coming from the rib cage and they're attaching to the pelvis, okay? All the way to the sides of the abdomen muscles, right? All over here. Let's see which color here. So you see like all the way on the sides of the abdominis muscle and like the rectus abdominis, which is your abs basically. And then this part of the oblique, it is attached to the pelvis, okay? Like, what do you say? The iliac crest, okay? Yeah, sorry, I forget about it. The iliac crest, which is the border of your pelvis, okay? And here you can see that, right? So here's a simple illustration of the pelvis, and the border here, that would be the external, that would be the iliac crest. And you can see in the black right here, and in some red right here, the obliques are attaching to that border. Okay. So that's one of them, right? Oblique muscles. And one of the main muscles at the back. Oh, by the way, just before we get to another muscle, look at that photograph right here. Okay. These photographs are from Rachel Bradley. You know, say he's been what's his name again? So Rachel is his wife. Yeah. So I mean, they're a couple.
Patrick, I forget. I'm going to say Patrick, but I'm not 100% sure.
Noah Bradley.
Noah, that's right. Noah. Yes, you're right. Noah.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, they release like very good photographs. You know, this is one of them. You can see like right here, see how these muscles, you see like all these muscles that are obliquely oblique, you know. So these are like the oblique muscles. Okay, basically. Okay, we're gonna be talking about this muscle now. Okay, what is that? That big muscle right there. So that is, and you can see, okay, the obliques in action as well. So here we have another amazing photograph. You know, Mike is talking about references. Again, not a beginner one, you know, but yeah, if you're more of an advanced, you know, artist, you know, for sure, you can go for it. But look at the twist, you know, that is happening all over here. Again, this is also an S torso, by the way, you know, because you can come from here, you know, and then yeah, you can go from here, like connect the pelvis right there and then into the legs, okay, directly. And then you can continue this path into the arms, you know, kind of like that as well. But yeah, here the oblique muscles like really are in action, okay. Twisting again, you know, that's what you can see right here. All right. Here we have a simple setup, you know, so okay, let's take the same reference here. So here's another model, by the way. You know, what do we usually use in the mentorship, you know, and then what do you usually use in general work as well? Boxes are actually a great way to just depict like forms in simple manner, and rib cage and pelvis are no exception. Okay. So here we have, you know, like a box and a pelvis into that same orientation, and all you can do is just like fill in the gap, right, which is the core section using the muscle that we have just learned, right? So yeah, see right here, you know, I can just come up with that right there. So you see like this edge right here, that edge would be connected to this edge, okay? So that would be connected like this. And this edge, obviously, that will be connected by the edge that we don't see, right? Or the point that we don't see. Okay, so it's going to be like this, but we do see like I would say a little pushed out stomach, right? Like the abdomen muscle right there. And then this is gonna come and attach to that. So basically we are like forming a twist here. In a simple manner, this is actually just doing this. Okay, so here's the block. Here's the twisted, like the pelvis in like form up. Yeah, in just another direction. And then you connect this to this, this to this, this to the other side, right? Like this to the other side. And then this one to right here. Okay. So that's how it's gonna go. Again, just like I said, you know, not for beginners, you know, but you know, it's very fun. And this reference is very fun, you know, to draw actually. Okay, all right. Now the second muscle that we are going to talk about, but we don't have too much time left. Anyway, so here are lats. Okay, so I'm just gonna finish that in a couple minutes. So there we go. You know, so one of the biggest muscle, and I would say, yeah, they are big muscles, but they're thin muscles, you know. But this muscle remind me of like flying squirrels, if you ever like seen them, you know. So like gliding squirrels, you know, so how they have like this like the sheet like underneath their arms, right? So it's the kind of same thing. So lats originate on your spine and goes all the way to underneath of your arm, right? Your underarm, I should say. Okay. And yeah, what the function of the lats is, right? Like it's basically like to like pull down your arms, like you're basically this like whole upper back section. Okay. Very cool muscle, by the way, you know, just amazing. Here you can also see how it's attaching to the underarm there. All right, so here's the image, right? I want to give the answer before, you know, before we leave. So here's the drawing I posted, you know, and just asking like what's the template is. And many of you answered very correctly, right? Because it's a simple one, and yeah, good job, you know. So here's an S, right? So it's going like this and this. And here you can also see like the lats muscle, you know, just kind of working. So underneath your arm, so underneath the arm, so let's say this is the position that we are choosing. So the delta, sorry, the lats muscle is just going to attach from here, coming all the way, and this is your spine right here. It's gonna attach like all the way right there. Okay. All the way to the butt crack. Okay, so like at the very beginning of like the glutes muscle is just going to attach right here, and then on the other side as well. Okay. So it's kind of like that. And then you can actually separate this muscle out right here. So I'm gonna separate that from the yellow part, like here. So this section, this yellow section, that would be the whole muscle section. And then this part right here, let's say a little bit of orange right here. This orange piece right here, that would be the tendons. Okay, so that's how like the muscle would attach with the bone, right? With using the tendons. Okay, so yeah, there we go. Yeah, you got it right. You know, congratulations to those who got the answer right. It's an S torso, and yeah, one of the main muscles that's last, like it's working very heavily here. You know, because you know, throwing up your arms, you know, putting them back. You know, that's how the lats has been activated. Yeah, and there we go. You know, so okay, we're gonna conclude the stream. Hopefully you like this little part and this like wrap up. You know, hopefully your cake is complete with all the layers, and then the, you know, the icing on the top. And yeah, no, hopefully you like it. Thank you guys.
All right. Thank you, Mrityunjay. That was awesome. Super thorough.
Yeah, very welcome.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for coming. As a reminder, again, if you like what we're doing here, then please go visit drawingforce.com. That's where we, you know, do mentorship, and there's premium memberships. It's where, you know, all this education that you're getting these pieces of here live. And have a great weekend, right? We will see you guys next Friday. I think next Friday, we have another special guest actually coming on. So come visit us and yeah, come and meet them, right? Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. See you guys. See Swami and Mrityunjay.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye.